Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. There's this idea in the direct realization traditions of being a non-returner. And it means someone whose desire is strong enough that they are no longer coming and going so much out of doubt about whether they're wanting to do practice or in and out of wondering if they'd rather just give the whole thing up or being thrown in and out of states of devotion and going back into just ordinary frames of mind where they don't even think about presence or they're not thinking about their practice at all. So a non-returner is someone who has a strong enough desire that brings confidence and knowledge about what your life is actually about. So you don't have any doubt about that anymore. Whether you're in that condition or not, you're still going to be in greater or lesser states of immersion and presence. You're still going to forget, what you're about now and then. But there's this inner conviction and burning desire to follow. And there's also another way that this is described as being in the river. So you jump into a river and it's pulling you along. When you are in that condition where your desire is strong and your conviction is strong, then there's the experience that even if you have resistance, you are still being pulled along. You are still following that pull. You are no longer the one in charge of everything. So Ma said, give yourself up to the wave and you will be absorbed by the current. Having dived into the sea, you do not return anymore. What this speaks to is that there is already built in to us and to nature a pull, a flow toward waking up and realizing the nature of the self and becoming more integrated with that in our body, energy, and mind. It's already built in. For instance, if we go to the beach, we understand even if we don't swim, the ocean's still there, right? If we go to the river, even if we don't get in the river, we know the river's flowing continually. It doesn't stop just because we don't get in it. We also don't create the ocean. We don't create the river. It's already there. It's already made by nature. So this wave that Ma's talking about, or this current, or the sea that she's talking about, is everywhere. It's within us. It's everywhere. And it's always encouraging us to become more immersed in that current of devotion, the current toward waking up, the current of having all our body, energy, and mind organized in the direction that the river is actually flowing, rather than trying to swim, horizontally or, trying to swim through rocks because we don't like that they're there, or going on the bank of the river and digging ourselves a hole and jumping in it to ignore the whole thing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we do. But what Ma says that there's a time that comes when we are in the current, we're in the river, we're in the sea, and we become immersed. And at that point, we are being pulled by the current. We are letting ourselves be pulled by the current. And at that point, we become what's called a non-returner. Because we are following, we are allowing the current to take us. We're no longer fighting against the natural purpose of our lives. We're no longer arguing against it. We still have resistance to this, that, and the other thing, but we have this confidence and conviction that actually allows us to surrender to that current. And I think this is really important to understand that that current is palpable. It's not even a metaphor. Because we can feel the current in our hearts, we can feel it in our bodies, we can feel it in life circumstances, that they're pulling us in a certain direction. We can feel it in the wisdom that we notice speaking to us when we get our heads out of our butts. We can notice it in, through how our teachers are helping us. We can notice it in moments of grace. We can feel the current is always there as an actual current, as an actual feeling of being moved or of some livingness that's pulling us along. And we should tune into that. That's what we should be tuning into. But then sometimes we decide that other things are more important than tuning into that. So we just ignore it for a while, or we discount it for a while, or we fight against it for a while. But someone who's really in the river, in the ocean, in the current, as Ma said, is maybe still fighting a little bit, not ever denying it, not ever thinking this is not the most important thing in life, not ever thinking I'm going to be doing something else and give all this up, all this spirituality stuff. So Ma says, I'll just read it again. Give yourself up to the wave and you will be absorbed by the current. Giving yourself up means letting down all of the contrived aspects of your life that are in the way of you recognizing what life is actually about, what it's actually for, what we're actually doing here. So give yourself up to the wave and you will be absorbed by the current. Having dived into the sea, you do not return anymore. This is a quote from Anandamayi Ma for those who tuned in a little bit later. The other aspect of this is the absorption. So one of the reasons we try to deny this current, it's the central place in our lives that it really is taking, is because we have this self-concept. We have this concept of who we are, and we don't know who we would be if we weren't holding on to this self-concept of being these self-willing individuals with these certain goals in life and certain ways and things we do, things we don't do, and things we believe and things we reject, and all of this kind of stuff, all of this kind of jumble sale of concepts that we think is us. And of course, being absorbed into the ocean means that we become, or we recognize that we always were ocean all the time. So our sense of self changes radically from this set of convictions and concepts and beliefs and rejections and acceptances and likes and dislikes and goals and must-haves and can't-haves and all of that stuff. You know, when I look inside, when I feel there's just nothing there. I mean, I feel liveliness and I know I have a personality, but I don't feel the presence of like an independent self anymore. It's just kind of nothing. It's just kind of liveliness. That's it. Liveliness and, you know, some clarity and some stuff like that, but not like a person. So most of us are afraid of that. We don't really want that to happen. And if we sense it in our practice, you know, it might be a nice, relaxing experience for 5 or 10 minutes, but then we're like, well, I don't want to live that way all the time. I want to get back to myself that I was constructed by my culture and by me and my family and my ancestry and stuff like that. That's the self I'm familiar with. I'm sticking to it. But that's also the self that's causing you a lot of suffering. So this idea of following the current. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is I think it was Nirmana, who's sitting right here, by the way. Somebody, either you or somebody else asked, what do you mean by open the heart? Rebecca said, I don't know what you mean by that. And then Nirmana said, I think, that it's more like open to the heart. And I think that's really great. I've been thinking about that because the current of the heart is always happening. We're not opening our heart and making something happen. We're actually opening to what's really, or tuning in to what's already happening and letting ourselves become immersed in that. And that's true of everything. The wisdom is always flowing towards us. It's always flowing in us. And we are tuning into that and going along with that and letting ourselves be directed by that, just like we would be directed by a current in a river or in the ocean.
I'm really like yielding and like relaxing into the river. And the more I hear people speaking to like what I know in my heart to be true, it just feels so overwhelming that I come back to duality.
Well, everybody does that at times. And it is overwhelming. And it is okay that it's overwhelming. And as much as you can just let yourself be overwhelmed, that's a good thing. Even if it means being overwhelmed inconveniently for days on end. This is the problem. When we have transformation happening, when we're hearing things, that are, as they say in Dzogchen, striking the point. It's like we've just dropped a bomb in our system of some sort, or, something is touched and some music starts playing. I mean, there are many different metaphors you could use. It can really mess up our ordinary life. The thing that people don't understand or just try to ignore as much as they possibly can, especially in this country, is that these practices and these traditions are traditions of very, very deep transformation, thorough transformation of your entire relationship to everything. In order for that to happen, on some level, you just can't keep going along in your everyday life the way you always did and then become enlightened on the side. It just doesn't work like that. So, right? So, of course, this is the reason why Anandamayi had 10,000 followers and 5 devotees. She had 10 or 20,000 people across India and a smattering in Europe and elsewhere, when she was alive, I'm talking about, who considered her to be their spiritual guiding light, but they weren't really doing anything different in their lives. Maybe they were doing a little bit of practice every day, maybe not, but they still considered her to be their spiritual guiding light. And then there were the bunches, maybe like 500 people in ashrams who were devoting their lives to something. It seems mostly to arguing with each other, but who knows? There were also very sincere people in the ashrams too, but those weren't actually the people that were really letting their lives be 100% transformed. Those people were maybe literally 5 people, maybe 10. I don't know. Ma had, of course, her life was so multivalenced and multi-layered that no one could ever say for sure who her real, all of her close students were. But certainly when anybody came and said, I want you to be my guru, 99.9% of the time she said, nope. You have Bholanath as a guru, or you have my mother Didi Ma as a guru, or you have someone else as a guru. She would assign people gurus who would not be as demanding as she was. Or sometimes people would say, I want you to be my guru. And she'd say, well, are you willing to follow me 100%? Yes. Are you willing to leave your family? Something like that. So she had this 3-question rule, or if someone wanted something from her like that, she would ask them 3 times, and they rarely ever got to 3 still saying yes. But if they did say yes 3 times, then she would take them on. She would take them seriously. In any case, it is a rare and magnificent circumstance when someone is willing to allow their lives to get messed up in order to wake up. So this is why we come back when we start to have these overwhelming moments. This is why we pull back, because we realize that if we go super far into them, who are we going to be? We're not going to be the people that we were before. So most of us prefer to just do some sadhana and have our lives transform very, 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 very slowly, so we can still hold on to a whole bunch of stuff as we're going along. And we're like just thrilled that we have many lifetimes, so we can keep doing this stuff for lifetimes on end and not be too weird and just seem the same as everybody else on the outside and keep doing sadhana and etc., enjoying that. And that's, 99.99% of people. And then there are other people who do have access to more of the deeper transformative processes. And again, it's like, how far are you going to go? How far are you going to go? What do you want your life to be? The thing is, you don't get to decide. When we are in our ordinary mind, we think, I'm planning this, that, and the other. I'm going to live here. I'm going to buy a house there. I'm going to have this job. I'm going to have this retirement account. I'm going to look for this kind of spouse. I'm going to spend my extra time doing this or that or the other. And here's the things I like, and here's the things I don't like. We think we're in control of all that. I mean, it's not true, but we think we are. But when we are really in the river, we know we are not in charge. We are just not in charge. Wisdom is in charge. We don't make decisions like other people make decisions. And we don't know what our lives are going to look like 5 years from now. We just don't know, or even a year from now. So There's a lot of space between, this super slow incremental and the fellow that they tell that story about, Babaji, who went searching all over India trying to find Babaji for years and years and years. Finally, this Mahasiddha finally found him in some Himalayan cliff with his followers. And he said, Babaji, I've been searching for you for years. Let me be your disciple, please. It's all I want. It's all I want. And Babaji said, okay, jump off the cliff. And the guy just didn't think for a second, ran and jumped off the cliff, fell thousands of feet down the Himalayas, got smashed into a million bits. And as the story goes, Babaji accepted him as a disciple, reconstituted him, and they went on. So there's a lot of room between that and the super slow incremental way. And you have to find yourself somewhere along that continuum, how you want to go. But I will say that there's nothing wrong with being overwhelmed. In fact, it's absolutely a necessary part if we're going to have deep transformation. Absolutely necessary. We're going to go through periods of feeling overwhelmed, cracked open, destroyed, confused, despairing. All kinds of things are going to happen. And, even ecstasy is really disturbing sometimes, right? So, depending on where we're at. So this is just to be expected. And the thing that I would advise you to do is just let it happen. You say, what can I do? Because you want to handle this in ordinary mind mode. You want to go to a spiritual career counselor who gives you your little pro forma of how, if I'm overwhelmed on Thursday, how should I handle this? You have to let go of all that. You're not in control, and you should try to be as in little control in those moments, as little control as you possibly can. And also, if you stick around, there's just so many tools I can share with you to get more in the river and let yourself be navigated day by day by wisdom, if you want to do that. There's another story about Ma. I think this was in Dee Dee's diaries. There was a kirtan, and there was a young woman. She was around 15 years old. And she heard the kirtan, and she fell on the floor crying. And, she just kept saying, everything is Ram, everything is Ram. She was just crying in this beatific state. And her parents were really concerned and said, Ma, what have you done to her? This is terrible. My daughter's on the ground crying to Ram. It's horrible. And Ma said, there are yogis that spend lifetimes trying to experience this. Leave her be. But this is the kind of cheat that happens, not just in the United States, but I think a lot of places where we're learning smidges and dribs of these kinds of traditions, or even if we're learning more than a smidge and a drib, we really don't get told, or the teachers don't know, or even if they do know and we are told, we don't really take it in what these traditions are actually for, what they actually offer, what the practices actually do to us, right? If done consistently over time. We don't really take that in, a lot of us. We still think, this is just going to be something on a checklist in our to-do app, or something we work into our life plan with our life coach. It's just not that. These are the most powerful, transformative things we can do as human beings. And sometimes that change is stormy, and sometimes it's not. But, it really changes our relationship to everything. And what do we get in return is we get freedom, we get knowledge, we know who we really are, we get real confidence, we get the experience of being suffused with devotion. What we get back is immense, immeasurable. And the real linchpin is, do you want it? That's actually the crux of everything. Do you want it? Everything is given in response to your desire and your courage in following that desire.